Good morning, everyone. This video is being made for my history and geography class, and so that I just want to make that clear because some of you are my YouTube viewers and I'm putting this on YouTube, but I make it for my history and geography class. However, it will be left on my YouTube channel unless, of course, I say something horribly wrong and I get my career and possible future destroyed. Good morning. So today we're talking about World War II. Three things specifically. We'll be talking about who was involved. We'll be going into some specific details about the Axis and the Allies and how World War II impacted the world. Alright, so who was involved? What teams do we have? We have the Axis and we have the Allies. So, on the Axis team, we have Nazi Germany, we have Kingdom of Italy, and we have Japan. On the Allies side, the main three, we have the United Kingdom, we have the US, and we have the Soviet Union. And then we also have everyone else. Mostly everyone else. Alright, so obviously America didn't get involved right away in 1939 when the war started, but we did get involved a little later on, and so did everyone else. By the end of the war, I'd say 95% of the world was involved in World War II. Alright, so how did World War II start? Well, World War II started when Hitler invaded Poland. Now, how did Hitler become leader? Well, he ran for office after a hard life, basically. The dude came from nothing and worked his way up after a very tough life. Really tough life, mainly because of him and not being a victim, because of his extreme political party and competing with other stronger political parties in Germany, of which there were 40 political parties. What the heck? You guys are very divided. Look at America. We got two. Obviously there are upsides to having 40 political parties as opposed to two. But there are also downsides. So let's say a downside to having 40 political parties is you don't have a clear distinction of what you want. But the upside to that would be as all those political parties had to basically do what we do in America and pick a side and help each political party build up so that you can get some idea of what you want or some piece of your idealism into there. As well as in America, we basically divide into two teams and whack at it. Which is okay. You know, we don't have to go through the hassle of, you're at this political party, oh wow, I've never heard of that one before. But, I know these 39 more. Anyway, we have a more clear idea of what we wanted at the time. Alright, anyway. So, Hitler ran for office of Chancellor in 1933. That didn't work, but he ended up being second, and his opponent took him in as like his vice chancellor. That's probably not the name of his position, but we'll call it that for now. Because I don't know what it is, and I've already done so many hours of research, I'm really done right now. Alright, however, in 1934, Hitler himself became Chancellor. In 1933. And then 1934, he became the Führer. Hitler reworked the culture of Germany through anti-Semitism and well-executed propaganda. He blew up Nazism to its fullest extent and converted all of Germany to Nazism. Whether it's through convincing them or through intimidating them. He was quite the tyrant. Alright. Hitler raised the morale of Germany. Hitler's whole thing about conquering Europe and potentially the rest of the world was all based on Nazism. We are the superior race, so we're gonna go conquer all of you, right? So what does he have to work with? Well, I'm not sure what his economy was at the time, but I can't say it was anywhere near America's. What did he have to work with? He had what he believed was the superior race, and he had 1% of his population, which was Jewish. Now, 1% is pretty small, and being not a godly man, though he used to be Christian, though he broke away from Christianity, he had this Jewish culture, which was very small, and he had his race, which he needed to build up somehow. Now, what's the easiest way for a non-religious person to build up others? By tearing others down. You tear down the Jews, and you get to build up all the rest of the Germans. So he did that, and he added all his Nazi propaganda. One thing interesting I would like to tell you is that Hitler was only like 5 feet. 5 feet tall. This dude was a foot smaller than me and weighed 5 pounds less. So if you look at any pictures of him, he looks big, he looks strong, he looks proud. Well, proud he was not big and he was not strong. But he was smart. He turned a nation that was basically down in the dumps and crushed morale-wise after World War I, and made it this super-powered, superior race nation. One thing Hitler did while getting ready to conquer the rest of Europe was preparing the future generations for becoming the next generation, basically. He was taking the future generations, the small children, and he was raising them up in Nazism. They were being taught Nazism in school, obviously, and they were being taught how to basically expand what he did. Alright, so how did World War II impact the world? This was the largest war of all time, and everyone was involved in it. So, let's start with America. We're not going to do everybody, alright? We'll just start with America, one step at a time. America's at the beginning of the war in 1939, when Hitler invaded Poland, didn't have a very good economy because we were just coming out of the Depression. So this war actually helped us when we got involved. Our unemployment rate before we got involved in the war was 25%, but when we got involved in the war, because we had to draft 13 million soldiers, our unemployment rate dropped to 5%, and that stayed even after the war. Now, we didn't obviously keep all those men in service. Many died, but many stayed in service, and the others will be able to move into other jobs after the war. Something interesting, during this time, you wouldn't say there were many feminists. Those people I'm not a fan of, but that doesn't matter. What the point I'm trying to say is, during this war, most of the men were out fighting because we drafted 13 million soldiers. So the women had to move into the workplaces, basically, in the manufacturing places. And everything, what I love about World War II is the America, because our patriotism was so... From the way I read history, patriotism sounded like it was at its height. It was at its peak. Everyone was either out there fighting, our men were out there fighting, and our women were in the factories building literally anything that would help the world effort. So, and they got to work a lot of overtime, which didn't help them. They worked a lot of overtime, which let them save up a lot of money. They didn't have a lot of time after that, so they just saved money basically throughout the whole war. And then everything we were building was helping to help the war effort, whether it was helping advertise to join the army, or whether it was building something that would kill Nazis. So at the end of the war, our economy was boosted. There was a small amount of inflation, but everyone had their money, everyone was set. So America, like it or not, was, dare I say, was positively impacted by World War II, if you exclude all that. And then, of course, men dying, everything. Economy-wise, America was positively affected after World War II. Now, how did this war affect Japan? Japan, throughout the war, obviously at the end of the war, things weren't pretty good for them. At the beginning of the war, Japan had a large military force, and they had a large naval force. Very large, they were pretty good. Let's give you a joke. Let's do a little World War II joke. Soviets did all the work, the French took a beating, and America came in to clean up the mess. Oh, no, let's try this again. Soviets did all the work, French took a beating, The Japanese screwed things up, and the Americans cleaned things up. All right. So Japan. Japan is a hot topic between Americans and Japanese even to today, because obviously of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. From an American point of view, the Japanese were so racist, in which they were. Their political ideals were somewhat similar to the Nazism, is where they believed they were a superior race, which is very hard to deal with, especially in the Japanese case, where they blow themselves up or fly themselves into one of us before they would be captured, or before they would lose a fight. So, from an American point of view, the Japanese were so racist and they're so prideful, so their unwillingness to surrender when all hope of victory is gone, and gave us no choice. We had to do something big, and we had to do it fast. Thankfully, though, we were winning some battles. Battle Midway was really good for us. We went in with a few ships. They came in with a bunch of ships, but we just destroyed them all. Anyway, fighting in land battles was not easy with these guys. So we basically island hopped, bombed islands, moved to another island, bombed an island to get these guys out. Because going in and fighting these guys was excruciating. Alright, these people... I feel bad talking about the Japanese right now because I have a Japanese friend, but... pal, I'm just talking about your nation's history. Kind of hurts. Let's just get on with the video, alright? Ignore our feelings for a second. These people killed themselves before being captured and trained young teens to fly their planes into our battleships. So we had to do something. So we took our atom bombs, and then we got permission from the United Kingdom, which we had to apparently because of the Quebec Agreement, and orders were issued on July 25th for atomic bombs to be used against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. On August 6th, a little boy was dropped on Hiroshima, and by little boy, I mean that was the name of the atomic bomb that we dropped on Hiroshima, which killed between 90,000 and 149,000 people, and continued killing people after 4 months. Well, after 4 months of the bomb being dropped. 3 days later, a fat man was dropped on Nagasaki, another atomic bomb, and Japan surrendered on August 15th, 6 days after the Soviet Union's declaration of war and the bombing of Nagasaki. So we just nuked them twice, and then the Soviet Union came to back us up in the war against Japan, and they gave up. What were they going to do? We just nuked 2 of their major populations, destroyed 2 sites of their major military sites, and things were looking really bad for them, really bad. We needed to do something big, and we did something big. We did something big, and then the Soviets just piled onto it. It worked out. And they piled onto it by joining the war. Alright, so they surrendered on August 15th, 6 days after the Soviets declared war. And the Japanese signed the Instrument of Surrender on September 2nd. Today, Japan still is a strong racist group, but it's nothing like it was during World War II. So, how was Germany impacted by World War II? Obviously, they went in strong, just like the Japanese, but they didn't come out too strong. Obviously, they lost the war pretty bad. So, Germany surrendered in 1945 unconditionally. They had no power, they owned nothing, basically, because we beat the heck out of them. All of the Allies. And they had nowhere to go. They had nothing to bring to the table, so they had to surrender unconditionally because they had nothing to offer. And by nothing to offer, I mean they were no threat at this point. Germany was divided into zones of occupation by the US, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. But how did the Nazis just disappear? Well, the answer is they didn't. We were in the middle of occupying Germany, all of the Allies, the ones I named, the US, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. So we all had a piece of Germany that we were occupying. The Soviets basically shot Germans, Nazis, didn't matter. They just blamed the Germans for the start of World War II, which they didn't like. The Britons did a pretty good job, I believe. They did a better job with their education system, from what I've heard. The French, I don't know, and I have the feeling I don't want to know what they did. The U.S., I know more about what the U.S. did than what the other guys did. So the U.S., what did we do in our occupation of our side of Germany? Well, we destroyed their education system in order to rebuild it when we realized they had no teachers that we could implement. So we took out the Nazi teachers, realized there were no other teachers. We put the Nazi teachers back in. We rebuilt their education system. All right, and then we took out a bunch of their government officials, which were obviously Nazis. And then at this time, we'd taken a bunch of Nazis through courts. We put in a bunch of them through courts, giving them punishments. Some were given capital punishment. Some were, at the very least, were sent to prison for 10 years. Some of the Nazis had escaped to South America before we could fully occupy our side of Germany. What else we have here? We tried to denazify Germany, and so did the others. Around the time of 1947, the Cold War was going on, so we basically left, and we left. We put a few Germans in charge, and we said, hey, you deal with your job on denazifying your people, and we have the Cold War we have to focus on. Soviets kind of did the same thing. So we let the Germans alone, and the thing about that was at the time we left, 77% of the Germany Ministry of Justice were Nazi officials. So when we left, things weren't much better. However, when you read history, it looks like we did nothing. We just kind of went in there and messed everything up, but we actually somehow did do some good. And I think that really our intervention and then basically the Germans, the ones who were led by fear, changed because they weren't being led by fear anymore, and then the other ones just went with the crowd, and things worked out somehow. God works, and He is. So let's talk about South America. Adolf Eichmann. Adolf Eichmann was the mastermind behind Hitler's final solution. If you don't know what that is, that happened in around 1940 to 1943. Well, no. The Holocaust happened around between 1940 and 1943. The final solution was getting rid of all of the Jews that the Germans had stuffed in all these ghettos. We had lots of ghettos. We had lots of people overflowing these ghettos. What the heck are we going to do to them? Well, we could just send them away. No, we can't, because they'll just flood our places, which we don't want, where we don't want them, because none of these places around us will accept them. They're Germans, and we're losing a war. We're in the middle of a war, okay? No one's gonna take German refugees. After everything we're doing, no one's gonna take German refugees. So what do? Well, let's kill them with rat gas. So we started exterminating the Jews, right? Adolf Eichmann was the one, basically the guy right under Hitler, dealing with the final solution. So after the war, he fled to South America with his family, his wife, and his 4 children. He was working in a automobile manufacturer place, and where eventually, in the 1960s, some Israel agents captured him and then brought him back to Israel, where he was tried and executed. All right. Here we go. Now that we know more about World War II, if you would like to see what my opinion is of what would have happened if the Axis had won World War II, please drop a like, share this video, and comment below on what you thought. If I missed something, like how Germany had 40 political parties, which is insane. I didn't miss that, but that's just insane. I keep getting wild by that. 40 political parties, my gosh. It's cultural differences thing, you know. It's strange. So comment below, drop a like, and say hi.